we had some troubles. Like we actually started the live chat, and we were not live. But anyway, I will repeat myself. So people on this channel knows that I'm quite deep in the Juno Network, which is smart contract platform, and we can see on your T-shirt that. And there is quite a few projects being developed on the Juno network. One of the projects that is being developed there is the centralized name service, uh, which is being developed by the validator Needlecast, which I think is you, or you are part of the company, the validator
So
company.
that's us. Yeah.
So if you could just like roughly in few words tell me at first who you are, and what maybe like even start from the very beginning, your first time in crypto.
Where's the beginning? Yeah, I was gonna say.
Start from there.
Well, I mean, if you go back far enough, I got a little bit involved in some of the crypto stuff in my city, doing graphic design actually a long time ago, like 8 years or something. I did some work for some folks and got paid in Bitcoin, and it was really interesting because that was the first thing that kind of made me interested in it, because it was so easy to, like, at that point, pay in Bitcoin compared to using bank transfers and stuff like that. It was pretty quick, it was pretty cheap, and paying with a QR code and stuff was crazy. And of course, like, the fees went up and it became less useful for that over time. But at that point, I was like, wow. And in the UK, we have quite a lot of financial, like, banking innovation. And so a lot of the starter banks and things caught up with Bitcoin. Like, they made QR code payments and start a bank account by, doing it on your phone and reading your face and all that kind of stuff. So it, like, to me, Bitcoin was like, wow, the consumer stuff needs to catch up with this. This is crazy. And it kind of did. So I kind of went away from it for a little while. And then Cosmos was the big thing where I saw that and I was like,
so what was the year your first Bitcoin payment that you received?
2011? I don't know.
Oh, this is so you are because like I'm asking that because you are the early one.
Yeah, well, I spent it all on pizza after that. So I spent loads of Bitcoin on
okay.
pizza.
That's okay.
And then I didn't have any Bitcoin for years. It was one of those where I look back and I don't even know the dollar value now.
This is the feel good story. You spent probably a bunch of Bitcoin on pizza, right, or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And so if someone thinks they missed on the Bitcoin, that's the feel good story.
It was good pizza, At the time, I was really broke. I was pretty broke as well. So.
Yeah, a lot of good pizza in UK. I used to live there, up north in Newcastle for 2 years. That's where I learned English. Yeah. Where are you based?
Northwest, to Manchester.
Ah, not that far. Yeah.
So there's a few things here. Like, I don't know if you know the ETH ecosystem at all, but Known Origin are based here. Like a big kind of NFT.
I don't know. Sorry. And then many years after that, you got into Cosmos. You say, right?
Yeah.
It's and why Cosmos? Why like because there is Ethereum? Like quickly, why would it get into Cosmos? What caught your eye there?
Yeah, sorry, it's a long story. It's quite dusty in this room, so my eyes watering a little bit. Sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, well, so, like, I think like a lot of people, I played around with Solidity and these kinds of things, like smart contracts in that space. But I guess a lot of what I've done in the past is a combination of either data engineering, but also using what a lot of people would call sort of esoteric programming languages. I care quite a lot about programming languages and programming language theory. And to me, Solidity... so two things, but Ethereum is obviously an incredible project. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, this is game changing. But there's two problems with it. One, the runtime is global. That's just not going to make it. Sorry, it's not. And the proliferation of like extra layers on top of it has proven that. And the programming language substrate itself, it just seemed to me, unless it's a general purpose programming language with a lot of the security guarantees of a high performance, but also secure programming language on top, also not going to make it. So the two things in Cosmos that are really exciting are seeing that, like the internet, things scale horizontally, lots and lots of blockchains, and also the fact that the smart contracting, or at least CosmWasm, which was the other thing that really excited me, is Rust. And Rust is a secure way, or a more secure way, of sort of writing code that is handling financial transactions. So it seemed to be a very good substrate to be building upon, and that's those two pieces together. I think are like totally key. And obviously, I'm wearing Juno t-shirt, and we're a part of kind of the core two group of Juno sort of development. And a big part of what I've done for Juno and doing in that kind of space is sort of developer relations, I guess you would call it. So trying to bring developers into Rust, into CosmWasm,
Hmm.
and to build on Juno. But I mean, if they want to go and build on Terra, fine. Like, more
Hmm.
CosmWasm devs is really the name of the
So
game.
I will just get here because many people don't understand what Cosmos is, but what Cosmos is basically the layer zero. So it's hard to even like
Yeah,
compare it to Ethereum or stuff. And they have this toolkit. Could I say like this? I'm not the tech guy. Toolkit, which is
yeah,
called
yeah,
Cosmos
exactly.
SDK, where many different projects, including layer ones, are building, and then which is Juno, that we are interested in. There is Terra and many other projects, Osmosis, and getting to Juno. So I made my video once after Juno launched a few months ago, and I didn't know anything about this because there was this fair drop. It was so sudden, and like people would even like what the hell I'm talking about, right? So
Yeah.
how, because Juno is basically open source, so everyone can contribute. I would like to learn if you maybe have the information how many people contributed to the Juno, how it started, and and this sort of things, like to bring some clarity to the people. Did it appear 3 months ago, or did it actually start a year ago or 2 years ago?
Well, I mean, if you want to find out a lot more about that, you could speak to somebody from Core One. So Juno is a very loose group of people, coordinated in sometimes quite confusing ways to move the project forward. Um, the original group of people that founded Juno, there's kind of like a core group, like the multi-sig, and there's people like you will have seen on Twitter or on Discord, like sort of like Meow and Dimmy and Wolf Contract are very public, and obviously Jack as well, and Block Creators are all kind of very, very
I
public in the.
I tried to speak to Wolf and he ghosted me a few months ago, and it's I think he's just busy, So
Yeah, they're
that's
all
I'm not.
incredibly busy, as you can
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously, if you want to know the ins and outs of it, they're the ones to speak to. But I think it was about March last year they got started, and very quickly they sort of brought in a few people that they knew from other sort of projects to sort of get things moving. I think I got involved in maybe April, late April, something like that. Um, and yeah, I mean, it's hard to say how many people have been involved. I mean, I in terms of getting it off the ground, like testnet validators plus devs plus people who sort of early supported the network and helped to get the word out there and whatnot. I mean, that's probably it could be anywhere between 20 and 100 and 1,000 people, depending on how you
That's
draw
quite
the line.
large. That's quite large for the new crypto project. I know it's not many, but like crypto can scale very well, and there's
Yeah.
many crypto projects that have way less contributors.
Yeah, in terms
Um,
of in terms of like developers, like engineers, it's probably 5, 10 people, maybe 15. And like I say, there's a core of about 5 people on the multi-sig. But I think the thing about Juno is that it brought together a lot of, like, because people could kind of get involved as much or as little as they wanted. It ended up being a much broader group of people, I think, that actually
yeah.
you can kind of say got Juno off the ground and got it to where it was. Like,
What really surprised me, because I didn't expect the things go that far. So like the Juno was basically this, well, first maybe that open because of course you can have like secret networks and stuff, but Juno was this first open smart contract platform, and we are like month and a half after the smart contract launch, and I see like 50 projects being developed, which is like
Yeah,
absolutely insane with the speed for the new smart contract platform. Like, so like it seems to me that this is quite similar to what Ethereum was at the start. There was like, let's say like bunch of geeks like, oh, here is the smart, let's play with it. And Juno appearing now, and people who are not really incentivized by this like venture capitalists, but people who just want to develop, like, seems to be going to Juno. Like, do I see it right?
yeah. I mean, so there's a few interesting things. The multi-sig group Core One says there's several,
Mm-hmm.
like I said, there's several different kind of tiers of like contributors to Juno. The Core One multi-sig, so the founders of Juno, I guess, um, they very smartly put in place this Hack Juno thing, right? Which was basically about getting the network up and encouraging people, you know, like I said, I mean, like you were saying, without venture capital and without those kind of things, to contribute to the getting the network live in the first place, then getting smart contracts out, and then, you know, building contracts on top of it and building tooling to help other people build contracts. And they targeted those very, very smartly in terms of maximum sort of utility with like the number of, the biggest thing was number of people, right, in the ecosystem. Cosm
Mm-hmm.
Wasm, you know, when the first test nets that had smart contracts came out last year, when it was being experimented with pre-Genesis, you know, the number of Cosm Wasm developers in the world was probably sub 200. You know, so just getting that number up and all those things that are involved in that was huge. But also now, I mean, you've probably seen this ongoing like Hack Manita stuff, and there's now a rolling sort of incentives program from the foundation, I guess, like the core Juno, the development reserve, right, um, to be incentivizing people to come and build in the ecosystem. So it's partly idealism, but it's also, you know, those guys really knew what they were doing in terms of the way they put together those incentives to get people to who were kind of, yeah, I guess like wanted to be independent, but also wanted to know that there was a way of building cool stuff for the community and actually getting paid for it, I guess. And that really helped with the people who were already sort of interested, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
kind of people who would naturally be interested. A lot of those people came along, and we see them in Discord every day saying, hey, I'm interested in building a project on Juno. What do I need to do? And our docs and things are quite good for that reason. Like, we spent quite a lot of time on Juno documentation. We've contributed quite a lot back to Cosm Wasm as well. And we have, well, I say we, I mean, Juno more generally have a seat at the table in terms of like Interwasm and these things that are about the Cosm Wasm ecosystem as well. So there is a sense in which Juno is also not that selfish and like it, you know, just has to be about Juno. It's like, well, if there are more Cosm Wasm devs, if there are more people doing smart contracts in Cosm Wasm that interop with one another, then everybody wins, you know, because this is an internet of blockchains, and that is kind of core. I can't speak for everybody in the project, but I feel like that is a core thing that everybody sort of understands, is that we need to
Mm-hmm.
actually work together with everybody and all the other chains that we can interop with. And that's every chain that's running Cosm, really, which is
So
an increasing number of chains now.
I will get to Cosmosm because Wasmonkton tweeted something about this today. Do you know the Wasmonkton from Osmosis?
Yeah.
Few months ago, Jack Dorsey tweeted Rust is the future, or something like this, right? Not
Yeah.
sure, not sure if you remember that, but this happened. I was like, Juno. I don't think there's any other smart contract platform in Rust. So I want to learn, as the non-tech person, why Rust would be superior to Solidity for example, or any other languages. Maybe even like because there is Agoric coming with JavaScript. But what Rust offers that other languages do not offer, and why I guess you believe that will be the standard maybe in the blockchain space, or maybe not?
Well, so at the most simple level, you can point to something like there's not nulls in the same way. So there's a whole category of errors you just throw out the door straight away. You can't have those errors in the same way because the language doesn't support them. There's also this kind of immutable first approach to the language, which is quite counter to the way a lot of things, certainly when I started programming, would have been done. But you can do that in a relatively performant way, and you can obviously bypass it and use mutable references and stuff like that. So it's really up to the programmer. But again, reducing mutability where it's not needed tends to eliminate a certain class of error. So those are two kind of language level things that I think are really fundamental. In terms of simplicity, it's obviously a low level language, but it's part of the ML family of languages, roughly, and it takes some things at compiler level from research languages like Haskell. So its type system is really good. It's very expressive. It's quite difficult to get your head around at first. But
there is one project written in Haskell, and it has not very good opinion.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think the problem is people are afraid of Haskell because Haskell is hard.
There's not many developers in Haskell, right? So like you want to build in language that is easy and where many people can build.
Well, that's the thing. That's why Agoric and JavaScript, right? And Solidity looks a lot like JavaScript, but it has some of the flaws of those languages. Like I say, I come from an ESA-Lang background mainly, so I'm used to finding a needle in a haystack when I'm trying to hire, when I'm working for somebody else or doing a project. I'm used to sort of being able to gather all the programmers that work in the language that I work in into one room, and it's like 100 people for the entire country. So I guess I'm not as afraid of choosing the language that's right if it's not unpopular. And the great thing about Rust is that it has a learning curve, but people who write it are quite happy with it, and it seems to score quite highly when you do sort of surveys on like developer happiness writing the language or approachability for relatively new developers. But the flip side of this is that do you want completely brand new developers writing complicated financial instruments? Maybe not. If you if you have people who already can write one programming language, they can look at Rust and they can work it out. And the fact that it kind of has this, like a compiler that's based on a very, very advanced research compiler, and it's also kind of functional oriented and has immutability first as these concepts, means that even if you are a beginner, there's a whole class of errors that the language is trying to guard you against. And the compiler is going to help you to identify those errors and get rid of them from your code. Which, even if you've already been doing this for a decade, it's really noticeable how much help Rust will give you as you're working in this kind of tool chain. And that's fantastic. And it's really noticeable coming from, like, if you've done any Solidity and then you go to use Cosmwasm, it's very, very, very noticeable that you're dealing with like a really heavy G language. And the great thing about Rust is, like, it's a general purpose language. It's used for web browsers and stuff. It's not just used for this one thing. So you've got this big pool of people who are essentially making sure the language is solid, and it's that as well as the whole, what does the language feel like to use and all that kind of thing. That's one part of it. But also the fact that it can be used for other things. I mean, there's a big pool of Rust developers, or a bigger pool of Rust developers, but there's also people who are using the language for other things all the time, where they have an interest in it working every time and being correct. And if they find a bug, you benefit from that. And it's those kind of things that I think, back to the point I made a while ago, that's the real benefit of having a general purpose programming language rather than something that's really, really specifically narrowed down for, like, this language was written just to use on this one blockchain, and that's it. And that's I think the great strength of Cosmwasm. And also, more broadly, now there's more than one chain in Cosmos running Cosmwasm in production, so we all benefit from using this same tool chain. And if one of us discovers a problem, we can all benefit from fixing that problem together.
So regarding the cosmosm, there's quite a few networks developed using the cosmosm. Terra, Juno, right? So
Yeah, Stargaze as well.
um oh yeah, love Stargaze. I
Yeah,
mean, I got
and
the
great
airdrop.
project. Those, in terms of like technical ability, that team is absolutely fantastic as
I
well.
you
So
know like so like I will drift away because I didn't plan to talk about Stargaze, but like my concern is like all of the culturally impactful NFTs or projects are still being dropped on Ethereum, and my one concern is, as much as I love like Stargaze, uh seems to me the team is good. I don't know, but I know it will be great experience because all Cosmos chains have this great experience, great graphics, everything like this. But the only one thing, will they be able to attract the culture? Like, right, there's some movement like bored apes become the movement, or maybe something else. So this is like only one question I would care about Stargaze, if they will be able to attract this, or they will be trying to drop something like the CryptoPunk version on the Stargaze chain, which is not good way, I believe, to do things, because you need the culture, like, if you know what I
yeah,
mean. So
I
that's
do
one
know what you
concern.
mean. Um, I mean, well, obviously, I definitely, just as I definitely obviously can't speak for the whole of Juno, and I absolutely can't speak for Stargaze. You should speak to Shane, incidentally, if you're interested.
I will
Very
try to
smart guy.
probably get him. Like, so I made the video about Stargaze, and the reason why I was like, I said I'm bullish, like I'm a silly guy, and I was like, he's in New York, he live in this nice apartment. This is the right guy to do the NFTs,
Well,
like
also,
that was
I don't know
my
if you
argument.
know. So
And he
Shane,
built a lot of apps. So like, yeah, like
yeah, I was
I
going
a
to say,
lot
so
of influence,
his
drum kit,
background
and
is
quite a, so that's why I was bullish. And like, seems he's doing well in life, so I mean, this is the right person to build the NFT platform. That was my idea. But like, I just really hope that it will capture the culture, it will capture the creative people, maybe musicians, like that. It will be like really shaping the culture, because that's what the it wants to be, right? It wants to shape the culture. So this is important. I hope it will go there from those open seas and stuff like this, because I don't feel the user experience is really nice there, but we'll
yeah.
see.
I mean, I think the advantage they have, yeah, is they have the technical ability to make it happen, and I think they have the product vision to make it happen. But
Yeah.
to some extent, the culture is, I suppose, beyond their control. Really, I mean, the culture is the culture. I spent a lot of my formative years, let's say, working on the music scene, playing in bands, going to shows, promoting shows, that kind of thing.
That's such a British thing to do, right? Like, every second person in UK playing a band.
especially well,
I mean,
especially in Manchester, it's like Joy
yeah, and
Division
but
and the
the
Verve and
British
all that kind
music
of
is
stuff.
great. It has great influence on the culture. Like, I mean, rock music is like, so like, that's what you expect from the British people. Like,
Yeah, but it does mean that you appreciate that you can have the greatest band in the world with the best
Mm,
drummer, the sickest guitarist, or if you like electronic music, translate that to DJs or producers or whatever, and you can produce something that is incredible. And sometimes it just doesn't land. And I think that it's God. It sounds like such a lame thing to say, but obviously crypto is pop culture. And I don't just mean, there's this thing that's been said for a few years in programming languages. Programming languages are pop culture. Like, so when you say like Solidity versus Rust, it's like saying Oasis or Blur. Like, to use the 1990s reference, it's a bit of a dated reference, right? But it's the same kind of thing. Max Cooper or John Hopkins, if you want a minimal techno version of that reference
mhm.
for modern times. But I think there's always that element of you actually. It doesn't matter how objectively good one thing or the other is. At the end of the day, somebody said "place an email." Very funny.
They
Um,
argue in the comment section, so I'm not really, but that's okay.
I was never into emo. Sorry. But like you can, yeah, it doesn't matter. To some extent, it'll always be the case that there's an element of luck involved, and that I think you see quite a lot of people in Cosmos complaining about Cosmos's power relative to other crypto ecosystems. And again, it's just another example of this whole pop culture thing. Like, is you don't know whether it's going to take off or not. But I can tell you the one way it will never take off is if we don't build those things, build that tooling, have interoperable NFTs, and these sort of things that, from a technical perspective, are within our control. Like, can we make all of our chains do interesting things with smart contracts that are interoperable? Yeah, we can. That's within our power. And then we just have to see if some part of that ends up getting us by luck into the position that we are culturally relevant, then great. And if it doesn't, well, it was fun. It was a
We
fun
try
ride while it
again.
lasted.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. um
Um,
that's the like argument with Juno. Many people were like, oh, like this new project, because most of the people is like, despite not being tech person, I'm quite geeky in like reading about things. So there is many people um for whom crypto is just a coin. So when I
yeah,
would talk about Juno, they're like, oh, this shit coin, what you talk. It's like it's not things that I'm interested that it seems that what if these young people, the new culture will start building on Juno and it will catch up, then it becomes something bigger, from unexpected to, hey, this is now reality. So like I think that that's what you said, and many people don't get it. But I want to go back because we went to like NFTs, and this George Washington is guy from Osmosis. Like there's like people also don't argue how divided all Cosmos community is. That's like I go to like Juno chats, people roast on like Osmosis. You go to Osmosis, people roast on Cosmos, and but he said that like there is not many Cosmos developers,
no,
and
there aren't.
until there, yeah, so we can say that he is wrong in this case, because like what he said, until anyone with Cosmosm chain is hosting events and educating people, it's not gonna overtake EVM. What you make of that?
Well, I mean, they're right, and that's why I think Juno spent so much time and effort on developer docs and trying to onboard people, and hack Juno and now hack Neta, which are, a lot of this is about getting people to write smart contracts and trying to incentivize people to experiment with the technology. And obviously, Confio and Cosmwasm have their own initiatives around that. Deus Labs are really doing like loads of stuff in DevRel and training and all that kind of thing. And more broadly, there's also this Interwasm DAO, which sort of Needlecast and Envoys, which is the broader organization. Like we're sort of like a part of, I guess. I mean, like all DAOs and all these projects, they're all kind of like, oh, you're a part of them, you help out. Can you speak for them? No. But like obviously
Yeah,
Interwasm, you might have seen that Juno's allocated a significant chunk of the dev reserve to Interwasm, and a lot of that is about training and onboarding. And again, all of this is very difficult at the moment because there are like 50, 200, 100, whatever Cosmwasm devs, and all of us are spread really, really thin. I mean, like I say, we run validators, we help out with Juno, we do documentation, we're part of various DAOs, writing code, helping people as well. And everybody is like that. Everybody is spread across lots of different things. But as we train more people and onboard more people, that will become easier over time. And I think so when people are complaining about this and saying, well, EVM has got so many more people, it's like, well, EVM is worth billions of dollars more and has literally tens of thousands more developers than we do. Right now, you could put all of us in a big room and that would be it, right? Come back in a year and then complain,
and then
and
in
you'll see, and
five, right? So
yeah,
like
exactly.
that, it's like saying like in 2015 there is not many people working on Ethereum, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly. It's exactly like
like
that.
it's changed very fast in crypto space. um I wanted to ask you about the airdrops, which is, the airdrops are great, right? But I
Yeah.
was I was thinking, do you think it may be, not sure if you are the right person to ask, but
Probably not in this case. Yeah, I only know my tiny limited corner of things, but
I'm very happy to receive them. But I think they're not gonna continue forever because the dirty games will start. There is starting now. It's okay now. Many validators are like, delegate to us. You get the airdrop. Delegate to us, and it's. I think it's kind of destroying the idea of the airdrops. Or there was this case with Juno where actually one entity that was probably some fund received 2 million Junos, right? I'm not sure if that was something around that, right? Because they had like
Yeah, there
plenty
was like a
wallet.
big whale account.
So do you think the airdrops are the best way to go here? I
That's
mean,
kind
they
of
are
a big.
great because they make deep liquidity, right? But
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're launching a chain, there's basically two ways you can go about it. You can go venture capital, or because at the end of the day, people need to pay their rent, right? At the most simple level, right? So you need to raise like liquidity. You need to raise capital somehow. So there's airdrop or there's VCs. Some chains do a combination of both. Juno obviously just airdropped and did it quite optimistically and just went, people won't game the system. And one of the first chains to just drop a load of value to a load of people and see how it played out. And of course, some people gamed it. And some of the people that gamed it probably didn't even do it deliberately. They just had for security split up, tokens into different accounts or whatever. I would love to be in the position where I had 50,000 Atom in two different accounts. That'd be a lovely problem to have. Do you know what I mean?
it's like when the airdrops happen, I'm like, damn, I could just do this and this and this, which is horrible. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't talk about this to community, but we probably both know. Like,
Yeah. I mean, it would be a nice problem to have to be that wealthy in terms of tokens, right? But
yeah,
I guess I suppose I'm kind of a bit about airdrops. I mean, I kind of think that what Juno's done by just bringing itself up on the shoulders of the community and bringing the community with it is the way to go. If you can do it that way, that's great. I think what's interesting about airdrops more generally, especially for like CW20s and what would be sort of like L1s in Ethereum, is that what we've seen is they're now so easy to do already on Juno that people are getting airdrop tokens and they're going, I don't want this, or I don't trust this,
yesterday was
which is really interesting.
some token. I couldn't find it in my mean scan, which was weird because I'm staking Juno since the start.
Yeah.
I didn't see this. Maybe I did something wrong, but people were like, I don't want this. Take it away from me. I was like, why would you mind?
Yeah,
Like
well, it's really interesting, isn't it? Because like to go back to product development and stuff like that, you talk about how when a product's really, really new and really, really high value and really exciting, everybody wants it. But when it's really commoditized, it's almost worthless. And the thing for me that was fascinating is, we launched Neta on I should
15
know
December.
I should know the day. I literally on the 15th of December, we were all up for maybe we worked probably like 14-hour days in the 3 days up to that. And I literally just slept. I think we got the release out and I just slept for 24 hours. So this is why I can't remember it. But I remember like within like 4 or 5 days of that, people were airdropping tokens to people. And people were on the Juno chat or getting in touch with anybody they could find from the core team, or any of the developers like us who are not in the core team, but we're in kind of the broader Juno club.
Mm-hmm.
And saying, look, devs, mods, is this real? Is this real? I don't want this. I'm not sure about this. And that's crazy. Like to go from like literally in like 5 days to go from this thing is exciting and I want it to this thing is worthless.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the thing that Juno is doing, which is like mind blowing if you come from Ethereum, is how quick these things that were super valuable and super hard to do before are now just easy. And like DAO is right there doing that now.
DAO is amazing.
That's insane.
I'm friend with some bigger YouTuber and I'm trying to look like you should make like because he's all in Ethereum, he has like big NFTs in Ethereum and like you should use DAO to build your DAO. It looks amazing. You should. So I'm shilling this projects to my friends, but that's exactly what you say. Like in Juno, the speed is insane. Like I'm speechless. But by the way, did you got some Neta?
Yes.
Is it too personal?
Well, I mean, we obviously run validators and we vote on everything. So make of that what you will.
I got the max.
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
16,
That's
16.2.
a very good day then.
After that, I thought I could have got more, but you know, but
Yeah, hindsight's 2020 though, isn't it?
I didn't expect the value, which was like, people did these polls on the Twitter and like, will it be 1,000, 2,000? I'm like, it will be probably like 200, like at best. And
Yeah, I
it
was
launched and
thinking
it's 1.5K. I'm like, doesn't make sense. But
yeah, I mean, I had my mind is completely blown by that.
so
But I think it is an interesting point. Going back to what we were talking about before, with like how you commoditize something and it becomes worthless. I think the thing that people see in Neta is that it comes from a trusted source, in the sense of like it's sort of endorsed by the core team, and it's being handed over to a DAO, and there is, and even if like the DAO is obviously community run, but it has again the kind of if anything goes there's a sense, right, I suppose, that if anything goes a bit funny, or if there's like, oh, we want to do this thing and we're not quite sure how to, the DAO can sort of lean on the knowledge of the core Juno, whatever you want to call it. I mean, this is the thing, Juno doesn't even have a foundation. The core one, right, will back, you would have thought, although I guess it's not, even then it's an assumption, right, is that the core team of Juno support Neta, right? That's basically a given. And whatever that actually means in practice, it means people have confidence in Neta that they wouldn't have in some random CW20. And again, this is fascinating because that has made that valuable, where otherwise, it's just a very, very scarce asset class, right? And again, this is all back to what's all the interesting stuff that Juno's able to do now, because it's the first mover in the permissionless space and can iterate so quickly. Which, again, you see with DAO. Like, I honestly can't go on enough about DAO because it is such an interesting project.
I wanted to like try to make my own DAO, but I still don't really know exactly yet, because I have this very small YouTube channel, and I was thinking I will do Kryptonium DAO, right, with like 10 people or whatever. But like it's just fun to play, even for the small person like me.
Yeah.
Wow, I can create my own DAO. I can issue tokens. Like
it's
really
crazy,
amazing.
And to be honest, the other thing is, because you can issue the tokens now, it kind of makes, why would you mint a CW20 on its own now, rather than mint it using a DAO? Because even if you're minting it with like 2 other people, you mint it as a multi-sig with the CW20, and you've got governance straight off the bat. And again, this is the kind of stuff that would have just been like really hard to do before, and is now like a bit of a game changer.
I want to shield it. Crypto Factor has big channel. So by the way, like for everyone who will want to create that DAO, this is DAO.zone. It's basically the tooling, for those who don't know, to create a DAO. Like you can have tokens. So you, Paul, from Crypto Factor, like you will want to check it. It's I think there will be thousands of shitty DAOs everywhere, but that just amazing, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I guess that back to Neta, right? The thing that means people have confidence in Neta is it's curated. It's curated by a group of developers that people trust, right? And that's going to be the interesting thing now. Is now anybody? One of my favorite musicians once said something to me, which was like,
who was it?
It was Sam Healy from North Atlantic Oscillation, a quite unknown band.
Know. Yeah.
But he said, like, there was this day when everybody could build a home studio. And it was no surprise that the day after that, the world wasn't swamped, like overwhelmed with wicked cool music, right? I think what he was getting at is that, like, when you make something easy, it doesn't necessarily mean people are going to make good things. It means people are going to primarily make low effort things, right? And some low effort things will become really, really popular. And if you can make something low effort popular, that's kind of cool, because like you're just like, wow, how is this popular?
I could say Dodge, right? Low effort,
right?
Like very popular.
Yeah, exactly. There's loads of examples in crypto. Like, Doge is probably one of the best examples of something that like was literally no effort and is now worth billions of dollars. Like, it is the biggest practical joke in history. It is such a big joke that it's actually art. Like it's a piece of performance art. That's kind of how I think of Doge. And I'm somebody who I bought tens of thousands of Doge as a joke when I was drunk once. Yeah, again, probably back in like 2013 or something or whenever.
Wow.
And I sold it when it went up a little bit because I was like, my God, how is this worth anything? And again, like now, if I still had that, it would be worth I don't know, loads more. Like I probably wouldn't need to work. I don't know, but again, it's just such a joke. You can't take it that. I mean, maybe I can say that because I saw that stuff play out. But there's a sense in which like a lot of this stuff, like you can't take it all that seriously. If you do something low effort and it turns out that people like it, then cool. That's kind of fine. And if you make something that's high effort and people appreciate it, well, you know what? Sometimes you got to work hard for things. And again, I go back to the example of music because I know that so well, but that's kind of the case. And I think that's what we're now beginning to see with CW20s, and we're about to see with DAOs, is that curation and provenance and who is the team and what is its purpose is going to become a lot more important moving forward. And I think that's good. That's healthy for the ecosystem, right?
Might I ask you, like, do you have any idea who's behind Poopmos or anything?
Poopmos. I have no.
Because
I feel like we must know who it is, but
because this is the low effort thing, which is cool. I made the video. It's going to go live today. So I just tweeted if Poopmos could be Patreon of my channel, right, and free of charge. And
yeah.
he sent me via Sputnik 5 Juno. And I'm like, this is so cool because now I cannot take it. I'm going to add 5 Juno from me and I'm going to give it to 5 more people. And this idea that Poopmos is just about friendship, right? I think it could spike this kind of Sputnik donation friendship Twitter thing community. Like it's just, like low effort thing, but it could happen to be something at some point.
Yeah, maybe the real interchain was the friends we made along the way, right?
Yeah. But like I realized, because at first I thought Patmos is some like, okay, might be someone ridiculous, but between his tweets, I realized he actually knows things. So that made me okay. It's not just like it's probably someone who's maybe in the ecosystem, but I'm not sure. Which is
yeah.
But I would pay attention to Poopmos.
Well, I mean, I think people are paying quite a lot of attention to Poopmos already. I mean, I don't know what the validator's doing on Juno right now, but I think they're in the top 10. So
it's crazy.
Pretty well.
I'm like, he started validator node a month ago, and he's like around top 10 validator. I'm like, damn.
Well, and on a few networks as well. But yeah, we start to sound jealous if we talk too much about how well they're doing. They're doing what they're doing, and good luck to them.
Needlecast, I tell you, I did delegate some. I will delegate more to Needlecast. I don't like 10% fee. I like 5% fee. But I understand you do more. But I was thinking, because most of the people has 5% fee, why wouldn't you double your delegator number or in the token value with lowering fee? Because maybe you could even make more from the fees if that would be 5% and not 10%, or it's
I mean, it's likely, I suppose, but I think so my original background is like what I studied when I was a little bit younger and more naive was like history and economics, like economic history, and I guess like that kind of informs our approach as like an organization with what we do with the validators and all that kind of stuff. We try not to compete with people on things like price and whatever. We just we come up with a number that is like, this seems like, we're thinking, I think this is actually a problem with crypto in general, is that people aren't thinking 2 years, 3 years, 5 years ahead, right? And so we're like, well, hiring engineers is expensive, man. Like, it's really expensive. And we need to know that we have income for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years before we can hire anybody. And at the moment, like even with Juno, we're like 4 months into this crazy experiment. You know what I mean? So we're not in a position where we can bring people in just to work on Juno. No way. It's too early for that. Like, our accountants would kill us. So a lot of what we're trying to do is think, okay, well, how can we make sustainable ways that we can participate in this ecosystem for a long period of time? And then I know it's so boring. I keep bringing it back to like Cosmwasm devs and stuff, but then it's all just a numbers game of bringing devs into the system, into the ecosystem, because they will build cool stuff. Like I can think of like 3 projects I want to build, let's say, but there's like 10 more that I wouldn't even think of building, you know? So some other dev needs to think of building those.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't build those, but I can tell that dev, come and work in the ecosystem, come build some cool shit on Juno. I can do that. Or, you know, hopefully in time we can also bring those people in more directly as well, on a more direct basis, when we have projects that we want to do or whatever. So yeah, that's a long and rambling way of saying I think that it's quite I think a lot of people are trying to compete on price and things like that at the moment, especially in the validator space, because it's gone crazy. Like just even in the sort of year where we've been doing this actively,
Yeah.
like the Evmos stuff where they were having like 1600 I think, people trying to get in a testnet validator set. I don't even think it was incentivized. And you're like, you know, we actually run and organize, like Needlecast run and organize a lot of the test nets for Juno, and our validator set on Juno is pretty good, is really good, especially like the more active ones. And a lot of the most active validators are not in the top. They're actually towards maybe the bottom third or bottom quarter, and these are incredibly active, proactive validators that are always helping on test nets. They're doing 24 hours a day, helping us check stuff, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And but not every network has that, and that's what I've seen in other networks, is that the crazy hype we've got now means that there are a lot of people who are just having a go, and that's cool, because we were Meow, who runs DAO, says it's okay to be a noob, right? Because we were all noobs once. And I think that's a great way of looking at it, right? And that's true with validators. Like, it's important that people, this is what test sets are for. People come to us and people at us in channels all the time and say, I want to do validation, what should I do? And the answer is join a testnet, right? And that's how you learn, by your failures. But at the same time, it definitely is the case that, you know, some people don't know how to run high availability infrastructure, and they might not be able to learn quickly enough while they're already like live. So there's a thing like where I genuinely believe it's really important to just bring people in, have them try it out, and learn from their mistakes. But by the same measure as well, you do need a core of people that definitely 100% know what they're doing. Otherwise, the network will go down.
So I want to just say, people on Cosmos, is Needlecast also delegating like a validator with Atom?
No, we're not. We're actually only
Yeah,
on
no.
Juno and Stargaze at the moment. But
I saw. I think I delegated some stars to you. I will delegate Juno, and I want to encourage people, whoever stake on Kepler, redelegate some to Needlecast, because it seems they do some cool things, and I will get.
well, I mean,
this.
I would say actually, you know, there's a bunch of validators, like I say, in the bottom maybe third quarter, who are very active on
So
testnets.
I'm
If you go on our blog,
Mhm.
which I should remember, is needlecast.envoys.io. We have there's a blog post about the Astarte testnets. So the Astarte testnets, we ran 3 or 4 testnets in about 3 weeks to get Neta shipped. And
Needlecast dot
needlecast.envoys.io. That's our blog. And on there, we have a blog post about the Astarte testnets, which were the testnets to get Neta shipped for Juno. And on that blog post, there's a rundown of some of the validators that helped out with those testnets. And those testnets were like, you know, some of them, there was one in particular where we crashed the entire net at like 11 o'clock UTC. So on a Saturday night, my time, we were working till 2 in the morning with people all around the world who were giving their time for free. It wasn't an incentivized testnet. And like I say, some of the validators on that list are in the bottom third of Juno, bottom quarter of Juno's validator set. And they were working same hours for free to get a new network. You know, we did GenTX submissions to bring up a new testnet with a half an hour GenTX window at 1 o'clock in the morning. And we had 10, 12 validators helping us out, bringing the network back online and working out what had brought it down. You know, so don't delegate to us. We're doing okay. We're
It's
doing okay.
but I
Delegate to those
will
guys.
let's give shout out. Like I wouldn't do it because I go to bed at 10. I would be bad validator, but uh,
Yeah, so I mean,
I try to look for the people who work. So I tell you, like there was problem with Stargaze. Like Stargaze was a little bit remember the airdrop. Like there was the issues. Like the network got clogged, and then Jack Zampolin tweeted that there was validators who worked to solve it, and that was Imperator, Three Tecos, or something. Next day I delegated to these three.
yeah,
I see
they help
the
to do the
I
workaround.
see
I think
the
Rhino as well. Usurper Rhino also did some
Okay,
stuff.
like in I don't know. You can. I see easy staking being quite active. I'm not sure if that's true. So I
Yeah,
delegated some. I see the Highlander nodes do some stuff. So I delegated to him. I'm trying to search and I'm really trying to delegate to these people. So like often I split and like I have big, but like I just try. I'm not perfect with searching, but I'm trying to be fair with that. And
yeah,
so for sure not to 0% validator, but people I think can go to Discord and see who do stuff, right? Do you
yeah.
have few like you want to give shout outs to?
Yeah, I mean, I've got, actually, you probably saw me type it out. I got the list up here from the Astarte, but like, some of the validators that were really helpful. You've got Komikuri, Jabby, Mercury, Highlander was also there for a couple of those test nets. Messi, Rhino, Skynet, Disperse, who obviously do a lot of stuff for Juno.
I do delegate
Um,
to Disperse, yeah.
Polkachu, Space Potato, and Blockpain. So
Space Potato I delegate. To Polkachu I didn't delegate because had zero fees somewhere, but I see like
yeah,
it's worth to do.
but there's a couple there. I think like Messi and Mercury in
Okay,
particular.
Messi, like will
I
do.
think they're bottom 5, maybe bottom 10 validators on Juno, and they're, I mean, like I say, they're part of these test nets and stuff, and they're really, really, really
Yeah,
active in terms of us
yeah,
actually doing upgrades, keeping the network going forward, and all that kind of thing
yeah.
as well.
So I don't want to take all of your day. And you see,
Yeah.
Needlecast developing something that I got very interested. There was a post on Twitter, and I saw this post 10 minutes after it was posted, and it was the link to the website called den.sh,
Oh yeah, dense.
dens,
It's a little bit of
which
a
is
joke
the
in my own
name
expense.
service, which I believe you work on, right? Are you working
Yeah,
on this name service? So I think the names are like I don't know. I think it's experiment, but if people are greedy and want to make money, there's good chance if it works, people will make money on names. People made money big money on Ethereum name service. But I think you are trying to do something different than something like Ethereum name service and different than Terra name service, I believe, because it's not necessarily kind of the subdomain looking the wallet address, but something different. Could you tell me more about the decentralized name service that you build in on Juno?
yeah. I mean, it's not dissimilar, but there's, I think that the one thing that's a big reaction to those other kind of name services is that everybody's very, very focused on, and again, this is kind of back to the short term thinking, is everybody spends like loads of time thinking about the auction mechanics of how they're going to auction their names and then reclaim them after a year and then charge people again for them and blah, 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 blah. And nobody's really thinking about as much, to me, it seems like the underlying utility of them. And so the name service, literally, it really was a side project for us. We're building a number of different projects kind of in parallel and trying to work out all the time we have to work on these things in between all the other stuff we have to do. And it actually started at the Cosmverse conference. We were pretty much round a table, in fact, with some of the folks from Juno Swap and some of the folks from DAO and some of the folks from Stargaze, right? And it was just one of those where this other thing that we were making, that this is sort of Needlecast Envoys, we were making some stuff, and we were like, we need a way of mapping, wallets to names, right? It's a super simple problem, right? And it was like, well, NFT seems the obvious solution, right? Because NFTs already are bidirectional. They can be nested within one another via metadata. They can be made immutable or immutable, depending on what you want to do with them. And people already understand the medium. Like you can tell people it's an NFT, and they understand some of the limitations and constraints of that. And we also figured, like, well, it's probably easier for us to make an NFT interoperable with other CosmWasm chains than it is for us to say, we've come up with this new primitive, it's called a name, and it has these properties, and you need to support it now. Otherwise, we can't shuffle them around. Whereas, like, if we say, look, it's an NFT with some metadata, it's more likely that other chains will be able to either deploy the CosmWasm contracts that we write or work out how they want to use them and support them. And in addition, we know that Kepler and Co are going to support NFTs in their wallets. So it's quite a big ask for us as a project, because bear in mind, this was a side project for us. We needed a way of doing this mapping, right? We needed a contract we could call to get back a name for a wallet. And we're like, what's more likely is that Kepler are going to support us making our own name service with its own rules and its own primitives, and then saying, oh yeah, for this tiny little project that we're building on Juno, make it work so that we can work out who our users are. Or number two, they're just going to implement NFTs, and then we can just, it will just kind of magically work. Like, and if people use the name service, then it's useful. And if they don't, cool. But, you know, maybe something else will have come along by that point, you know, because again, we were building this other thing, and we're like, look, if our thing doesn't work out by the time Kepler bring this along and somebody else comes up with a solution, we can always just integrate with that. It's not a big deal. But so we spent some time working on this, and we worked up some of the ideas and kind of got it to work for what we needed, which was, we are a CosmWasm team building a DApp, and we need users, basically. So we'll build this name service that's basically a login, a user directory, that kind of thing. And will allow us as another contract to also like take permissions of those. Like the longer term ambition is like, yeah, you can take permissions from a thing and then create new subdirectories and whatnot, and reference other contracts and do other cool stuff. Maybe even like host small websites and host other contracts and sell things via those links and blah, 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 blah. So there's lots of other cool stuff. We thought, oh, that'd be nice if we can make it work in future. And we think the substrate for that is an NFT. Cool. So we knock that out, and then, you know, roll around like 3 months into the future, and we sort of quite quietly put it out, we thought, on Twitter. And obviously, like, again, we're kind of part of the sort of big Juno dev club, if you like. And we were like, yeah, okay, we're just launching this thing today. We knew that some of the other projects were interested in having access to it as well. So we wanted to get a first version out before like DAO launched and stuff like that, because we were like, well, we know there's these big other projects that are going to have problems with names and how to address things. And we have a relatively easy model for how to do that. So they can use us or not, but we'll get something out so people can see how it works, right, in the real world.
Did you get the names before putting this out? Because like some of the projects, like most of the chains on the Cosmos ecosystem were taken. So did you mint at some?
Well, we didn't think that through super well, because we didn't honestly think it would be that popular. Which is, it sounds kind of dumb in hindsight.
I supported your team well with my Juno there.
We minted Juno because we were like, it will be really bad if some random mints Juno. So we have Juno, and obviously we're talking with Core One about what they want to do with that. There's quite a lot of suggestions. You know, some of them are like, oh, you know, do we make free usernames that, you know, basically put that in trust and then build a thing on top of it so people can make usernames. I know there's also there's some other primitives, I think like name or username or something like that, that are also already held by Core One. They got hold of those.
You mean the name?
I think name maybe is held by Core One.
So I'm so upset. I wasn't sure. I checked name, it was available. I was maybe not. A few minutes later, I came back, it was taken. That's why I'm asking. But I got few good names. I just want to say that, like, but so
Well, we were like I said, we were kind of dumb. We literally just minted our own, like we minted like name service dense, so nobody like would impersonate us.
Yeah.
Needlecast and then a couple of joke ones. I think we minted YOLO and Wag Me. And then we actually gave Wag. Do you know Max? You know, the admin
Yeah, I
on the
know, I
TT
know,
group.
I know. Oh, so you gave that to
We
him?
gave we gave Wag Me to Max because
Yeah,
they
yeah, yeah,
worked so hard. They did, like, they're just
yeah.
always
Well, was it
working for the community.
was I tweeting at you? Are you responsible for this Twitter, the centralized name Twitter? I said I got Dodge and some
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I got Dodge and like some like I was what's the blockchain name? Blockchain names, give me.
But the thing is, you
Take
don't
it,
know what's
take it.
going to be valuable, I guess, do you? Because it's like what will be built on top of it. Like maybe
Like
lots of things, maybe nothing. Who
so
knows?
I next day I was like shit. I probably got bunch of useless shit like that was, but we'll see. But like so it would not work as this kind of subdomain name, but you could use the name as your wallet name, right? So let's say if I want to name myself Don, I you could basic it could be the wallet name, right? Don. If the
Yeah.
Kepler would integrate that, or maybe there's
Well, because it
would it
just maps, it's really straightforward. Like at the end of the day, the token ID is unique. It's unique namespace under the contract, and it maps back to a wallet name, right? There's actually a couple of other interesting properties of it. So there's additional query handlers for how it works under the hood. But for developers, there are extensions on top of. So there's CW 721, which is the NFT standard, has this hook which is like owner of, right? So the owner of the token always maps back to a wallet, and this is why we know it's just fundamentally compatible with pretty much anything that can take an NFT, because it has that hook. But it also has some other interesting hooks where you can ask for, like, is this so there's some extra fields in there, like you can add a validator's moniker, you can add a contract address. Not all of this is available in the UI yet, but the contract supports it. And these are extensions. So you can actually ask it, look, tell me if this name is a validator or a contract instead. And so longer term, what we're trying to do is do stuff like, you can have like a more complicated tree structure of different things that may or may not be contracts or other entities. And it gives you more of an ability to map things in kind of more like a graph than something that's just a straight up one-to-one mapping. And some of this is actually already live on the Uni testnet. Now, the Uni testnet is actually currently down because
yeah
we hit this really fun edge case and crashed it after the last upgrade. It's coming back online sometime later today, I believe. I should know that because we're coordinating it. So
yeah
it's either 6
so
o'clock or 8
later
o'clock.
today, okay.
Yeah, 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock UTC, it should reinitialize. We've been sort of, like, the last few days have been a bit busy working with that, which is why probably there hasn't been much mention of the name service from Twitter or on our blog or anything like that, because we've just been working on this. But yeah, on the when that comes back up, there will be this new feature, which is basically this thing we call paths, which you can think of as like subdomains. Essentially, it's like
Yeah. So
addressing things underneath them.
let's say I owe the name
Yeah,
and I can use it as the wallet name, but I could also maybe gift for free or sell for price, I would think, the subdomains. So let's say my friend could be Paul that and my name, and that would be his wallet name. That do I understand this in the simple terms this right or not
yeah.
exactly this way?
It's something like that. So the example we used when we were I think we put out a couple of tweets about this when we were working on the UI for it. You can actually I think you might even be able to see on our live version of this, because like I say, you can't do it via the user interface you can see in the browser yet, but the contract has supported it since we launched it. We built this functionality weeks ago. But you can basically, you sort of essentially namespace things under things, but because they're globally unique, when you pass them on to a new person, it just sort of continues as it was, right? So this is why having name is useful, because you can have like name : the fray, and then you might own name, but you transfer that to me, and if name colon the fray is a useful way of referring to me. I now don't have to buy a top level token. I can just use that one. And minting paths is free. So owning a top level token costs whatever the fee is.
Two or three.
There's a couple of Junos, and super short ones are an extra Juno. And yeah, whatever proportion of that gets that fee gets burnt and stuff. And so but the paths are just free. It's just the gas fees, right? So this is again back to like why we sort of minted Juno, and there's a few others, like I say, that are held by various people that maybe projects will use, and that's why it's kind of potentially interesting, because you could do a user directory that's actually a sub user directory within this broader name concept, where actually minting the original minting new names is free because they're all paths. They're not top level tokens, right? But from the point of view of the user, there's no reason you couldn't build if you know that every path that you're going to interact with has like name at the start of it, it's very, very easy to do. So like, in a browser right now, you don't ever have to type www anymore, right? Because it will try and resolve it. So by the same measure, if you know you own a top level name, you can build a DApp on top of it where you say, well, look, the only people that can interact with this are people with this in their token address. So you can just take it off and not show it to users. But so there's a bunch of stuff like that, which is really like, there's a way that it works under the hood, and then there's a way that people might want to show it to users, and it's really up to them.
So would it be like mainly for the wallets, or do you see maybe some other wallets, validator names, or
contracts is really the big one for us, I think, because it kind of seems like addressing contracts, but also complicated, like a contract that's nested within a contract or whatever, like various complicated arrangements thereof is quite useful. And it also seems like in general, like and it's a really, really dated reference, but like MySpace is quite interesting because, back in the day, like, I'm old enough to remember this, like, you had kids who had no idea what HTML was, editing and messing around with their own pages, and really kind of like using this very small little box where you could configure the page in very creative ways. And it kind of seems to me that there's also opportunity for this kind of stuff in the interchain space, right? Which is where our company, our organizational name, we have like Needlecast, and we have like a subdirectory for projects, and we have like things we might put under there in future. But there's, you can host an IPFS link in the external URL field of the name. So there's no reason we couldn't actually like put our website on IPFS and have a sub path for website. And then this is, again, it's just up to the user interface to decide what to do with that.
Yeah, like I wanted to ask if it's possible to use the names as domains, because it doesn't seem such a simple way, because so you have the essentially all top level domains are owned by this one centralized entity, and there is some blockchains trying to disrupt the top level domains. Not sure if you ever heard of Handshake.
I think I've heard of it relatively recently.
Yeah, Handshake protocol. So I've been into like Handshake protocol for past year, trying to get some names. They seem to like, they want to be proper top level domain resolver, but actually to be this top level domain, you'd have to be integrated into a browser, right? So are you even aiming at this, that you would be playing field in the namespace of well, that you would be basically domain service?
Yeah, I mean, I guess never say never, right? It'd be a nice problem to have, that we have a large enough user base that becomes a possibility. But I think that's one of those things where with network effects, it's we are never going to have the money to tell a browser company to integrate with us. So it's going to be one of those things that, I mean, from the point of view of like, do we have a globally unique identifier set? Yes. Can you therefore resolve them in a browser? Technically, yeah, if there were a thing to resolve to. But I think the difficulty you have with resolving anything from the name service is that our fundamental primitive is mapping to something on chain, not something that necessarily will have a representation that is comprehensible to a web browser, because our use case has always been fundamentally about interchain.
Yeah,
So
that's why I'm asking. That's what I was seeing this, because I know, for example, this handshake feel. I think I don't want to shield other projects, but there's
chill
so
away.
many difficulties on the way because you have like a conflict of names, right? Like, well, the page with this name already exists, and we have to choose the resolver. Like, who we gonna go with? And stuff like, then you have to get integrated into the the browsers
Yeah,
would not do it
naming
by
is really
themselves,
hard.
right? So naming is really hard, but like really fascinating. So like I was just so fascinated when I saw there is like some name service in Juno, which is basically different than Ethereum name service, that you just have this like subname, like seems something more creative here. So like that's why I wanted to talk, because it seems like one of the most fascinating projects
Yeah, I mean, I
here.
spent quite a lot of time working in a very there was this idea when the internet kind of first got off the ground that there were two parts of the internet. It was the bit that you see in the browser, right, which is, you know, rendering HTML and that kind of thing, and then there was this web of data, the semantic web, which was just a large graph of machine readable information. And this is a very uncool idea now, right? And Silicon Valley never really wholly got on board with it, and it's one of those things in certain circles you can get laughed at a little bit for saying you think was a good idea in any way, right? Because it's very out of fashion. But for whatever reason, I ended up working for some years in that sort of space. And I think like that kind of, just because everybody's laughing at you doesn't mean something is not a fundamentally good idea, has probably affected the way we've approached some of the projects that we're working on. But also the idea that it's fine to build something for machines to understand in order to make something useful to build on top of, it is kind of, again, back to this fundamental utility thing, which I know I keep going on about, but like, it's really important that if we're going to think long term about this stuff, we need to be building on fundamental utility and like trying to build useful things and iterate on them. And sometimes that means we're going to get it wrong, and that's kind of fine. But as long as we're kind of too focused on creating value in the next 6 months, it kind of we're kind of doomed to always create clones of other things. And I say that with the ironic thing of like, obviously everything is a clone of everything else to some extent. But I think that the kind of approach of like, you know, linked data and web of and that semantic web, I think also informs the way we've thought about this, which is that, you know, contracts are the way that the interchain is. Our bet, and this is back to Juno's core bet, is that it's quicker and more productive to build user-facing functionality using smart contracts. And even if you need a whole chain to do it, you can see with things like TWASM and T-Grade, you can do some very advanced native level stuff now with smart contracts in Cosmos. So if you assume that that is the case, right, and your bet is on smart contracts as the fundamental primitive, well, then the thing you need to address is contracts. And the other thing you need to address is wallets, because they're users. So it's users and contracts, and that's like most of the ball game. And so it would be, like I say, it would be a lovely problem to have, that we'd be like trying to work out how we can integrate with Web 2 and browsers and resolving actual websites and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, to some extent, we're also like, it's not that we're not interested in that, but we're smart contract developers, and our fundamental use case is smart contracts. And
I think that's way
that's going to
better.
become more important as time goes on.
Because I saw the projects that try to fight and being integrated in the Web two. It just like, it seems sometimes like waste of resources. Like, like it seems you will create more value when you just try to build the new things. I want to ask you, because I saw on Twitter, Nick Merrill.
Yeah.
Have you heard this name? Is he also working on that?
So Nick Elshow, is somebody who we know, again, through the kind of broad Juno dev people who work in Juno who contribute club. So Elshal's pretty involved in DAO as well.
I saw on GitHub.
Yeah, so and we've obviously done we've done not lots of work on DAO, but we've done a little bit. We certainly hang out there and throw out bad ideas quite often. We don't do a lot of code for it.
Yeah.
That's very much. But like, so a couple of the like the kind of core DAO contributors, so Ekez and Elshao, were quite important in like when we were sort of early doors thinking about how this might work. We had quite a few conversations about, we don't agree on everything, and ultimately what we built was a little bit different from, I think, Elshao talks about RAD, which is like an interesting way of doing recursive domains. And I think our notion is a little bit different in that recursive domains can only be unique in terms of computed uniqueness, whereas we want the uniqueness of the addressing identity to be written to state. And that sounds like a ridiculously pedantic distinction between the two different visions, and it kind of is. And there's no reason you couldn't actually kind of make one work with the other. It's just a question of when you resolve it, but just slightly different approaches to the same kind of fundamental problem. I think also there's some notion from maybe the future roadmap that we'd want to look at ways of like, you own a name or you own a path, and you want to say, without passing that on to somebody, you might want to say, I also want to associate the idea of this thing with this other thing. Like, I want to say that this other thing that I don't own, which is a resolvable name, has some kind of relationship to this. And this is where I'm getting into very uncool territory, because a lot of this stuff was tried in Web 2 and it's very out of fashion. But if there are use cases around that we find as we come along, it's something that we would consider building. And certainly I have an academic curiosity in it, if nothing else.
Would you like what's the next? Because like right now, so if people are interested in, there's basically dens.sh. I shouldn't say it like, but it's good for adoption. Yeah, I shouldn't say like, because maybe more names will be taken. But I guess it's the good things. But like, do you think to improve? Because right now there is not many things you can do. I mean, there's more things you can do with the testnet, but right now you can only register the name basically and manage it.
Yeah.
Do you plan on expanding to that? That will be like what could it be? I don't know.
Well, so we do have a roadmap again on the blog of like things we're kind of sort of stepping through. So, I mean, assuming we don't find any showstoppers, we're hoping paths and things will be hopefully up on mainnet maybe next week. And that's, again, it's still only minting and managing, so it's not a massive change from where we are right now. And you know, there's also some stuff where you can obviously look up people and send them funds and that kind of thing too, via the search function and that sort of thing. So again, at the moment, it's still relatively rudimentary.
And you will be able to send the names between the wallets to other people and
yeah,
all that
so
stuff.
you can actually already do it, but again, it's not in the UI. It turns out the user interface is really hard and really time consuming. So yeah, the big thing really, that like number one feature people are asking us for over and above anything else is a marketplace. Like we get a lot of DMs and messages.
I didn't want to ask this because it's like, if I ask this, you could be like, oh, you only think about money. you know? But maybe Stargaze, because names are NFTs. Could you integrate to Stargaze? I mean,
it's funny you mentioned that. Obviously, they haven't published their SG 721 spec yet, so it's probable that we are not compatible with Stargaze, the first version of Stargaze, because they're focused on a use case that's very heavily around sort of art and generative art and that kind of thing. But you know, our code is out there. It's really clear what our metadata standard is. It's based around on-chain metadata. So unlike things like OpenSea or whatever, where the metadata is held off-chain, you know, the good thing I suppose about name service is that everything, all of the metadata, it doesn't mean that the gas. I think a couple of people did complain about gas fees, and it's because all that metadata is being written to the chain. So it is, you know, you can update it, sure, but it is coming from the chain. So yeah, we're hoping that it will be possible to get other people to use it. I mean, the nice thing now is we have a user base that's not small, so it's good. It's good because it means that we can say to people, hey, you might actually want the people that are already using the service to come to your service and be able to, you know, work with these things. But also, you know, from our point of view, it's also made things a bit more like there's a saying again in music stuff, the side projects become the band, where we had like 4 other things on, and now this is like, apart from, you know, obviously keeping the validators up and doing all our day-to-day work, this is now like the biggest thing that is absorbing all of our time and
Well,
energy.
I'm glad to know that. And
Yeah,
you know, I actually think, because sometimes, you know, like okay, you want to be name service, but like as I said, like if you integrate that into Stargaze, people uh, in this age that we live in, everything is like trading and gamifying the experience. And I guess maybe even the fact that people would flip the name, trade that would bring the adoption to the naming service itself, right?
yeah,
So that's always positive. Also, the side effect of doing the marketplace, because suddenly people, oh, what are these names? I want to have this name, I want to use it,
yeah,
maybe I want to create the paths for my own community and connect it with with DAO, right, that I have. Because I guess like this also is possibility that you have the certain DAO that have different paths uh
yeah,
with the
different
main
things that
name,
each.
right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
yeah.
I mean, and again, that's one of the most important. One of the things that's interesting about being so early is that we have all these ideas for all those things we want to do, and there literally aren't enough smart contracts or dApps currently live to test these ideas. Like, we honestly have no idea. Well, we have a pretty good idea what will work and what will not. I mean, we've written a lot of unit tests. We've tested a lot of things before we brought it live. But how something works on a laptop or on a test net is not how it's going to work on mainnet. That's the
Mhm.
reality of it. So much of this is an experiment. That's kind of our caveat on everything, is we just don't know what will work. We can't guarantee it.
Mhm.
But what we would like to see, one of the big sort of priorities we would like to be, is to work out much more flexible ways of having contracts take control of things and then be able to work with the names that they have or they control, or in a DAO, you know, like say in a DAO's treasury or whatever it
Mhm.
might be. And as long as those things can send the right WASM messages, everything should work. Whether it will exactly as we think now, we're literally just gonna have to build it and see.
Mhm.
So a big part of what, yeah, like we're kind of doing at the moment, like I say, is trying to actually test in the wild some of those use cases with like getting other contracts and trying to interact. And that in itself is not that simple to test, which is why it's taken up so much time for us to work out how that's even going to, you know, flesh out. But also things like, yeah, like marketplace. People are asking us over and over and over and over again about marketplace. And again, it's something that you would think enough people have built a marketplace now that it's copy and paste. It turns out it's not. It's actually like requires quite a bit of thought and quite a bit of effort to
Well,
write.
but now with this video, I can assure people, yeah, it will come someday. You know, just
Yeah,
just
we're
just
we're
relax.
thinking we're thinking about it. We're working out some of the details, but it's definitely something that we have an interest in kind of getting right, because there are there are so many different moving parts with making sure it sort of works and it's secure and all this kind of thing, that we'd rather just say it's going to be ready when it's ready.
Mhm.
And if in the meantime other people build a functional marketplace and integrate with the token such that it can be passed on to them, that's cool,
Mhm.
you know.
Uh,
um
okay. Um, That was a little bit more than 30 minutes. So I feel a little bit sorry for
That's
taking
all
away
right.
your precious time, because you must work for us, deliver good things, and you wasting time with me on live chat. So like,
It's the post. It's the post lunch lull. Like I'll get back to it in a
uh,
second.
yeah. So sorry.
Oh, it's just after lunch, isn't it? So
Oh
it's
right.
the least productive time in the day.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always like that's why I delay the food as long as I can always. Can you like what's your Twitter? I will send maybe a few people your way if it's.
It's decentralized NS is
Oh,
the
okay. So
name
we'll
service
be
Twitter.
okay. I will also be sharing on my Twitter. But if yeah, decentralized NS, you can find this project. I'm following that, and I'm like I've been liking every single post that is out, so some people maybe noticed. There was some discussions in the comments. I know I wasn't addressing. Paul was asking about the airdrops and stuff. Like, you guys can message me and I will tell you how to check and where to check the things. What is your name? I'm sorry, like it's the wrong time to ask, but or you don't want to
It's the
say.
Fray,
The fray, okay.
not Ethan Fry.
Yeah, we had it like this discussion part before we were live. Thanks a lot. I'm going to share this on, can I share it on the Discord as well, maybe? Or
I think so. Share it
yeah,
wherever, and if
like
the mods don't like it,
so
they'll
maybe people can learn something. There was way more than the centralized name service, so thanks a lot for this. Maybe
yeah. And
maybe we can do
apologies
it.
to anybody that I've misrepresented. And yeah, like
Oh, it was, no, it
obviously
was,
I don't speak for anybody else, but
it was great. I enjoyed that. Like, I really enjoyed that. I learned about the validators some more as well. So thank you for your time. So let's finish it here.
yeah, no
Thank you.
worries. Party on.